No, and thank you and welcome to the podcast. I really appreciate you coming on.
So much. It feels like I'm like, wait, what? When you text me, like, wait, what? What is going on?
Well, like I say, as I travel through this life and travel through like this
Yeah.
thing of being an actor, I meet people, and I always find it's really interesting to go into something you're passionate and curious about, because then you'll meet people of the like mind. And when we were
Yeah.
filming together, or when you were directing me, some of the statements you were coming out with, some of the way you were working with the camera and footage really, really spoke to me. So I thought it's really hard on a film set to actually get a long conversation, because it's like, what about that lighting? What about this? I need to remember my lines. So
Oh,
now I thought we have the hour to just have a chat about film
yes.
choices and, why you do what you do and how these films have inspired you. So could you
But
give me your
it's
two?
such a
Sorry.
coincidence. We are screening our film today at 5 right afterwards. Yes.
Oh, exciting times. Are you
Yes.
are
We
you
are
happy with
very excited.
it?
We have, like, I've seen it on big screen and it's looking so good. You're looking like an absolute star with a lot of stitches, but it's fine. But you
Yes.
look nice.
Okay, actually, so for people watching on YouTube or people listening on the podcast, I should actually explain that Dia directed me in her short film, The Last Eight Count, which was absolutely incredible, a wonderful experience to be on, about a boxer dealing with CTE, trying to deal with the wishes of his coach, and at the same time trying to protect his son. And it was a really rich character to explore. I've had a lot of instances recently where I'm being a violent husband or a violent partner, so it was quite nice to be someone who's actually
Yeah, I
taking
remember
care
you
of somebody.
telling me, can we get some shots of me smiling?
Or at least hugging somebody. There was still some shouting going on, but I think
Yeah,
it was done for a good cause. So
yeah,
yeah,
we
and
love
that's
it shouting. Cover
so
as much footage as you can.
grabbing people, throwing
Yeah,
them around, all the usual stuff.
but
But
that's such a good shot of you slamming Marvin into the wall. It's so good. I'm like,
oh,
absolutely love it.
I can't wait to see it. It was an absolute pleasure to be directed with
It
by you,
was so
and
good working with you as well.
I really appreciate that. But yeah. So your film choices, which were amazing. I've never like watched much of this cinema before. So please say your two film choices, please.
So my film choices were so Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara. These are both Bollywood
Mm.
films because I'm from India. I grew up watching these films, and these two are my favorite directors from back home. So it's Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara, that's directed by Zoya Akhtar, and Bajirao Mastani, that's directed by Sanjay Bhansali. I'm I'm like, I worship him. I just like went to a masterclass by him at BAFTA as well, and
Oh,
that was a dream come true. I can't even tell you how, like, my heartbeat was this high, and like he just brushed past me when he was doing, and my friends got it on camera. I just stopped breathing for a second. I was just like, what? Like, I absolutely worship him. He's the, like, it was the period drama, the one that was very royal and stuff.
I,
So
let's start with it. I can tell you why I really got into them. Like, they both blew me away because they're both so different in
they are.
their telling of the story. But why Bajiro? Why was this one so interesting to you? What got you going
So
with it?
Bajirao Mastani is actually a true story. It's part of Indian history, and so Sanjay Bansali, him as a director, he basically dwells into this side, like his the way he makes film, they're always so grand, so magical. It's like you're in a dreamland.
Mm.
Things like this don't really exist, but it's like he builds those sets. Like, I've seen behind the scenes of him making those sets
Wow.
that are in the film and everything, and it's just so beautiful the way he works. That film really got to me because just the story, instead of, so Bajirao was a warrior from the Peshwa clan, and instead of making it a film about, like, I when I went to BAFTA the masterclass, he talked about this as well. He was like, that film, when he read the thing, like read the story, it wasn't about a warrior, it was a love story. It's like a
Mm.
love triangle. Love triangles are like very, they're in every Sanjay Leela Bhansali film. There's always a love triangle. There's always some chaos happening in someone's love life, and somebody gets heartbroken. Anyways, but yeah, so like that film, it's just so well done. It's just how the characters are brought to life. Like
Mm.
I have grown up reading about them in our Indian history, but then you just see it brought on screen, and there's nothing better than that. Like he just got everything in life, and you see there how such a brilliant warrior he is, and then you see even his hardships in his personal life, how he's to like deal with first his wife, who he absolutely loves as well. But then there's Mastani, who he fell in love with later. And it wasn't actually because he didn't try to marry her or anything, but there's some rituals and stuff, that tradition that when happen in a different state. Because India is such a big place, there are
Mm.
different cultures in every state, different. So when he goes and saves her, like helps her in the battle, he doesn't know first of all that she's a woman who like is battling and all. You remember the scene where she just
Oh,
like it's revealed that she's a woman,
it's phenomenal.
and that happens, and he gives her his like dagger to her, and in her culture, in her clan, that meant getting married, and in his culture it didn't mean so. But when it happened, they like first she's also a Muslim, so that Bajra was a Hindu, and that's whole religion aspects, that is another
Mm.
different thing, but that happens. But it's just how all these things were just covered in that one film. Like he just executes it so perfectly, from like the details of production design to like even one single drop of tear. He just gets it right, and you're like, you cannot leave the film without going, wow.
100%. I got to watch it on my big screen, and I was every scene looks like a painting, and the use. I think a lot of Hollywood cinema now. It's not a knock on Hollywood cinema. It's just a thing on Western cinema. It's become very desaturated, and when I watched some of the older classic films, that's when everything was Technicolor and bright. And watching these two films really brought that back into me, but none so more than this one. That every the use of color and scale, and like you say, just the effect in each scene, it's like you're watching a moving painting, but
Yeah.
the plot is equal to it as well. It's such an incredible visual and emotional
Yeah,
experience.
it's like he was talking when he did the masterclass. He was talking how he designs the sets like in a manner that they suit the actor as well. They
Mm,
have to go with the actor as well. So sets are designed in a manner that they go with every single thing. And he's such a spontaneous director. He was like, I go on the set and I just change it completely. If I don't like it, if it's not like make
wow.
me feel like it's not good enough, I will completely change the entire set. And I was like, yes, if it doesn't fit right. Like when we did our film as well, there were scenes like where we wanted to show your bruises and stuff, so you'd have to open your t-shirt. It just didn't go right with the blocking.
Mm,
And I completely changed it. And I just like that film, you can just see how hard the person, the last scene where Bajirao has completely lost his brains,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's doing this and this, and he's
The
just going, it's just so beautiful. Like you can see it in the acting, it just brings out, you just cannot help but cry. And then there's Kashibai, that she can see that her husband is just losing her mind, and then there's Mastani somewhere far away in a jail cell, and the dialogue that they say right before, like departing from each
the
other,
sun,
that yeah, that when the
when the
sun
sun and the
goes
moon
down,
meet, yeah, we will
yeah,
be together.
we will
Yeah,
meet again. And in the end you see that the sun goes down, but as soon as he dies as well,
yeah.
and it's just absolutely beautiful. And the fact this is all true, like I mean, of course there are things that are
They've
changed.
heightened it. Yeah, yeah, but
That is the thing, but Sanjay Masari makes these history periodic dramas. Sometimes things change, and that's the thing. Like when you make a film, you have to change things, and people in India are like very very protective of their culture, very
mm,
protective of the history. And when even a slight bit changes, they create a ruckus out of it. They create a lot of drama out of it.
mm,
And it's like he might have changed its and bits, and that like created a lot of cases, like law cases and protests and stuff. But at the end of the day, a film's a film, and you have to see it from a film perspective, not from. He's not making a documentary. It's a
no.
film, it's a film, it's a period drama. So try people should try and look at it by that perspective. And like he doesn't get shattered by all that stuff. It's just brilliant. That film is absolutely amazing. Production design always like got me like stuck. I was
It's
And the fact that he builds those sets, they are
That's
not
incredible.
it's amazing. You just go like, whoa.
I think one big thing that you're saying that's really chiming in with me as well is to pay respect to the legend or pay respect to the history, but at
Yeah,
the same time, it's art. So the most important thing is the emotion and the telling of the tale. So it needs to resonate with as many people as possible. So sometimes, like you say, they may heighten the battle or heighten how they meet with lots of water, lots of fire and color and water and all of these things being moved together, like
yeah.
like almost with the elements, like things that can't combine but have to.
I'll tell you a very interesting fact.
Go
When he
on.
was talking in his masterclass, he said that I am so connected to elements. I always try to work with water and fire. And I was like, oh my God. Like, it's so visible in his work. It's just amazing.
I just, that really sort of mixed with me because, like I say, like they're coming from different religions, they're coming from different families, and it's forbidden. But in lots of these scenes, you
The
see both these
forbidden love,
elements, yeah, coming together,
illicit
and then
affair.
lots of walking into water and just sort of like crossing boundaries. I really like, and what I really liked about it as well was even though there were battles in it, it really wasn't about like I could see a lot of normal films just being all about this major battle, but for him or for them and for the film, it's more about that love story. Everything is given its equal time, but
Yeah,
I really felt like you say that love triangle and doing the best, even if it might be against religion or the duties of a wife or making her like a
yeah.
mistress, and it was just the way it was all working. But it
It
was,
just
yeah.
made in like such a perfect sense. Like you know what is happening just by one expression on the
Mm,
actor's face. And like the way they use, so basically the sun and moon, like this is in my head, I don't know if he meant that or not, but because sun and moon can never meet,
yes.
that's how him and her are like a forbidden love, an illicit affair between sun and moon. That's just in my brain. That is one thing that like struck to me, sort of in like the Greek mythology of Icarus and Apollo.
Yeah, too
it
close.
was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it was like Icarus flying too close to the sun and they can never meet but they still fly. Like that really got to me, like that sort of concept, it just comes out in his films.
it,
It's so beautiful.
it was, and I don't know if this, but there's a thing about red and green as well, which are color opposites on the palette, but they like there was quite a big bit in it where they're talking about like I've worn green to this ceremony, but I really should have worn like is it saffron, which is more of a reddish color, but it's just the
It's
crossing of
it's
boundaries.
because the saffron is a color for Hindu people and green is a color for Islam. And so
Right.
and that is why it's there. So that's why he says I should have worn green. Uh,
Yes.
this, but but this. So it's basically saying in a perspective of religion because both of their religions were so different.
Yeah, and I mean, is this? I can honestly see how it inspired you so much because the thing is, when you first sent me both these films as well, I've got to be honest here, they're both over 2 hours long. And normally, when a film's over 2 hours long, I'm a bit like, "Urgh." Is it going to be able to like hold? Because sometimes a lot of films that go over 2 hours, especially it's a Western film, it's like they didn't know how to edit. So
Yeah,
it just, but these, there's nothing left in both of them. There is nothing left
you're
that feels,
transfixed. That's
yeah,
just Bollywood
exactly.
films. They're always 2 hours, 3 hours long. But the thing is, the stories are so beautifully crafted that you
Yes,
never really get bored of them. I mean, there
not
are
at all.
films you get bored of, but because there are shit films, they exist. But anyway, but these films, like, they just take a grasp on you, and there's something new happening every second that you are
Mm.
still trying to process something else, and new thing happens. So for the 3 hours, like for those 2 hours, you're just like, okay, and even after it ends, like you're just in that world where you're like still trying to process everything together, and you're like, what did I just see? Oh my god.
I had a guest on the other day and he said it. I found this really interesting as well. He said when he's seen a piece of cinema that really sticks with him, he feels like he's concussed. He feels like he's a little bit punch drunk or something, and he can't move. Like he just sort of
I
is
know.
rooted to the spot. Yeah.
I remember when the same director's latest film came out, and I went to see it in Basingstoke because there was no like it was premiering in Basingstoke, the audience,
Wow.
and I went there. I walked for 30 minutes in night on some highway, and yo, I'm not from this country. Okay, I come from a country that has a lot of crime
Mm.
and walking around in this nighttime. But I was so adamant, I have to go watch this film. I love this guy. I watched that film. I went with a friend as well, and after coming out of it, I just sat like this the entire train ride. I just couldn't speak. I was just in so much like awe of it. I was just like, wow, like
Yeah.
beautiful.
And for you, would you say it's sort of like so confining, like understanding, getting the point of the film across? Like, even though it's a long film, it isn't sloppy. Everything has a reasoning. Every shot has its point. The trueness of the emotion. I think like art transcends. If it was a story I'd never heard of. I've never
Yeah,
heard of either of these songs before, but they both really resonated with me because even though I've never been a warrior in a court, I can understand that feeling of love, that feeling of duty versus emotion, that feeling of maybe you're having to break boundaries and taboos to be true to yourself and
yeah,
authentic. Is these things that sort of inspire you as a director as well,
yeah.
telling these sort of stories?
Yeah, it's like, that scene where he alone goes in the battle with those two massive swords that he just swings
Yes.
and he kills everyone. Instead of the war, I like my focus was so much on his face because you could see the pain he's been holding because of what happened to Mastani. And
Yes.
like, even though a battle was going on, he just took out his frustration of love on that battleground. He didn't need anyone's help. Like, that's how like the whole concept of war and love was just combined in that film, and just it just blew my mind.
I, and just Ravia and sorry, Ranveer and is it
Deepika.
Deepika?
Yeah,
Ju- this film has an abundance of like close-ups coming into the eyes, but they never feel overdone. It's like you're just seeing these like looks from across a court, or just this understand that there's so much. Like I always say, for me, the biggest acting skill is to, it looks like you're doing nothing at all but you're doing so much, but the way the director could get that every single time and it felt fresh, the sense of betrayal, the sense of love, the sense of what, and then breaking out into, again, something that never happens in Western cinema really, breaking out into these massive musical numbers which add to the film because they're expressing all this extra emotion. And
yeah,
I love that. You never get to see that. Like when you're feeling tremendously happy or sad, or angry or whatever, you tend to listen to music. But in the
yeah.
films, they incorporate that by doing these massive dance, singing and dance routines, which
Bollywood
blows me away.
films are just like that. They're everything is a musical. Like a few of my friends here, they just hate it. They're like, why are there so many songs? Another song, another song. And sometimes I'm gonna like, even I hate it if they're like songs there for no reason. But in these films, the songs mean so much.
Yeah.
It's just like, fun fact, Ranveer and Deepika in real life are married, and
Oh,
yes, yes, they are. And Priyanka Chopra,
yes.
she, and it's like these three are basically one of the mega stars of India, and and it has always been hinted that Deepika and Priyanka had like a rivalry, which they actually don't. But you know how it's in the industry.
Yeah,
People just assume
showbiz.
things. People assume things, but it's like it's such perfect casting as well.
Mm,
Like, it's just you know it's like it feels so right. It's like they're made for those characters, and it just fits in. It's like right there. You're like, okay, I know these people are meant to be here, and they have to be like, the dance, the Pinga one where both of the female leads they dance.
show stopping, absolutely jaw dropping. That was like my favorite bit of the film. I was like, this is incredible. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's like sort of like a remake of Sanjay Bansali's older film that is called Devdas, in which again it's like a love triangle between a mistress, a lover, and a man. And in
Mm,
that they have the two female leads doing a dance together and becoming friends. And it's sort of like his own film, like just a remake of that iconic song. But
mm.
just it's just mesmerizing. You just see like those two becoming friends, but you can still see some of rivalry going on because the lyrics. I mean, I don't know if the subtitles had the lyrics subtitles as well.
Yes, yeah, everything was but
Yes. So it's like when you notice the lyrics of the song as well, you know what they're saying. It's like her saying that you're my husband's mistress, and she's like, yeah, you're the love of his life, and I'm just someone. But it just goes on like that, and it's so beautifully crafted. Every song, every choreography, everything is just so smoothly done. It just fits in. It's like a puzzle that is all getting mixed together.
yes. And is that for you? Like, do you see like film like a puzzle? Because I like going back to what you said earlier on about this isn't going to work. And for me, great directors are always those problem solvers, but not
Yeah,
like this isn't working. What can we do? Just but making those quick decisions and but
you
making the
have
right
to.
ones as well.
No, I think I like the first film I ever made that was my personal project. It was last year and it got screened at a festival right before we
Mm.
started Last It Counts. And so basically we were filming in Gloucester Meadows. That is one of the parks, and it was like rainy season kind of time, and we
Yeah.
were so hoping it doesn't rain because we have to shoot in like an outdoor scene. And it was an entire scene that had to be done that day.
Oh,
And when we are supposed to get into that scene, it starts heavy downpour. We changed the entire scene in 5 minutes. I changed it. I wrote new dialogues. We got a new shot list. In 5 minutes, we got everything done. And that scene, it turned out to be the best scene of like the entire film. And I was like, it's just meant to be sometimes. It's just a calling from up there. And you're like, okay, we have to
we
do
go.
this.
I find sometimes as well that is for me what you've just said there is a great example of being in the moment and being in flow,
Yeah.
like you say, putting together the puzzle. Life is uncontrollable. We have the illusion of control, but it's in those so-called happy accidents. Like sometimes when you forget a line and you just say something, or you just really are just things are just happening through you. That's the best way I can explain it. And like you say, then from that moment of going, okay, this isn't going to work, but what can we do? You find yourself somewhere else and go, that's perfect. That or the puzzle is fitting together.
Yeah, it's like that shot you did in the film where you just like hold your son and you like just hold him and you're like, no, I'm gonna do it for my son. Like I never planned that, but that's the thing. Like it's an improv, and we were just looking at the edit, and they were like, and everyone was like, bro, this could be like a poster for the film. Like it's so good. It was so brilliant. Like it just fit in. It
But
just it just brought some like spark out of nowhere. It was so nice.
oh,
Well
thank
done.
thank you, well, thank you. But no, one thing I was going to say as well is like being a director. It's for me like doing performance art and stuff as well. It's the collaboration. If you're
Yes.
solo, it's you're just I don't know collaborating with the audience. But as a director, you've got to collaborate with your crew, taking on different ideas, and you're molding like emotional clay. I've just come up with that. It sounds horribly pretentious, but like lots of different ideas with lighting, which may make the shot completely different. But you have this vision where you can see it, but also allow it to alter in the
Yeah.
moment as well.
It's like you have to go through cast and you have to take the improv of cast, but you have to go through practicality of the crew, and you're like trying to mix practical and creative senses together, and they have to meet a middle ground, otherwise your film's not gonna work.
Craziness, yeah.
Like there were so many times we had to like rethink some blocking because
Mm,
practically for a camera shot for the aspect ratio we're going for, it would just not go with it, and we have to decide something else. Sometimes the lighting cannot be changed, like we don't have the time for it, so we have to
yes,
change that. We have to like even in shooting schedule, we're like we know the light, if the lighting setup is similar for this shot, then we take all these shots together. And if there's some shot, like there was a scene that's in the like first cut, it's in the
mm,
first scene, right in the beginning of the film, but we know it's a whole different location in the same set, so we're gonna take it in the end. We don't care what has to be done. The main thing has to be done right now.
get that done.
And it's everything is just like a puzzle. You have to get this piece, you have to get that piece, everything has to go together. It's amazing, and I think that's what I've learned from Bollywood itself.
And also as well, what you've said about this director, it really speaks to me as well because it's very true for me to acting, and actually very true to me weirdly with professional wrestling as well. That you have an idea of where you want to get to, you know the end, or you know the the waypoints to the story you want to tell. But sometimes you can just ad lib and be in the moment and just
Yeah.
flow on how you get there. So like, okay, this needs to be a thing, this needs to be a thing, but maybe we can check, like you say, someone says, oh, we can't do that lighting effect, or
Yeah.
maybe the actor does it slightly different to what you're expecting, and just being able to integrate that
Yeah.
and just come up with something new.
Yeah, it's just like I feel like with actors, I like to give them like a bit of a background story to give them
Mm,
that like flow, like you are this character and you've gone through all of this shit, and you have
yes.
and I don't like to tell them the goal of their purpose, instead a backstory which they can relate to, because we as humans, we are made of past experiences, not the future that we might know, might not. So what is the point of telling an actor who is actually portraying a real character, telling him,
Yes.
oh, this is your future? If you know your future, your entire body language will change. But as a real human, which you're portraying out there on the screen, you have to be based on the character's past like experiences. So giving them a background story, like I think that really helps in improv as well. I hope
Yes.
so it helped, because it's like you have to tell them this is happening in your head, and you have to go with the flow. This is your life now.
Completely, and it's the way you explained it to me. It's like, as you say, as a real you can't just walk onto a set and have no idea of where you've come from. As a
Yeah,
human, as me personally, I am a sum of my past experiences. So anything that would happen to me today, how I've been dealt with or how I've dealt with other things in the past, will inform how I
yeah,
react.
yeah,
So the more like you say, what you said about my character's wife, Connor's wife, I thought they were just separated, which is very different to the fact that she died. And that really changed on how I was going to be with my son. But
yeah,
like I say, this is how you work with things. And the more story you can give, like, and going back to these films as well, it's not completely explained to any of the characters where they've come from, but you know they thought about it because the way
yeah.
they are acting with each other as well.
It's like with Connor, I felt like if the mother and father were just separated, the kid would always have an extra parent. So Connor would never really have a choice to be made, because he could always leave the son to the mother to be
Mm,
dealt with. But if there's no one for the son, like if with separation, there's always some kind of like
yeah.
bad negative feeling. But with that, there also comes a sense of purity, that their love still exists. It
Yes.
hasn't really gone away, and that makes you more empathetic for your kid or whoever the relation is to. And I think that really bonded the like Connor and Tom as father and son. And I think that's why I actually made this entire thing up on set, because I was like, coming with the equipment, I'm like, need to think about this, need to think about this. It's a 20-minute walk. Let's think about it. I'm just carrying the sound equipment with Jamie, who's the sound guy, and I was just like, need to think about this, need to think about this.
you're,
And it was just all going on and on.
you're putting
And
the puzzle together.
yeah, I was putting my puzzle together while walking in the rain.
Well, I would say now. So the films that we watched, I actually watched the second film we're going to talk about first. And again, I've got to thank you for it because a little secret, I actually love romantic comedies. I watch tons of them, which doesn't really go with my look very
Yes,
much.
yes. Rom-coms are so good. They're so good. They're such comfort films.
Oh, but yeah, but this one again, I'm like at 2.5 hours, and of course you're introduced to the first character, and I would say to anyone, watch it. It's absolutely amazing. But I thought, oh, it's just going to be he's getting married, or and he's going to go off on a bachelor party, and I'm like, okay, but wow, 2.5 hours long of will they, won't they? But then it breaks off into three separate
Different.
characters, and one wants to, and this again, we talk about the elements. I have to mention one does something that involves the air, one does something that involves the water, and one does something on land as well. And I'm
Yeah.
like, they all, oh, it was amazing. So yeah, please go
It's
into your story a bit. I was blown away by this one.
Yeah, no, that film, it's like I think every single person like who lives in that country has seen that film and loves it absolutely. That is one of the most iconic films. It was
It's
made I think
perfect.
10 years ago.
Yeah,
It's a 10-year-old film I think now. Doesn't feel like one.
no.
Every person's dream is to do that one road trip in Spain. It's absolutely, at least it's my dream. I want to make a pact with my friends. But yeah, it's just that film is just so beautifully crafted. You don't realize how involved you're into their lives, and it there's some comedy going on, but there's so much seriousness happening, and
Yes.
and all of that they're still traveling and they're still going on around the like country, and you're like, okay. And everything is being revealed at certain points, and they're all going through such traumas and something, but they
Yeah.
still live on. It's like what the title means, zindagi na milegi dobara. That means life, you won't get second chances.
Oh, I wanted to
Live
ask that
again.
was what I.
Yeah, you won't live again. This is your one chance at life, and it will not happen, you will never get this moment back again. So they're going through everything, but they're still living in the present. And that's what all those like characters also learn from that film, from
Yes.
in that film, that okay, like in the last scene, like where they're all running from the bull,
Yes.
and they make a pact like, if we live, we're going to do this. And in that moment, like, they just
Yes.
run. They are not running to save their lives, or I don't know what they're doing, but they're running,
They're
and they get
alive.
it done. And especially the character of Arjun, that really spoke to me. Like, I mean, I feel like I have turned into him. I work a lot. I just do this and this and work and work and work and work and
Mm.
work. And when you see films like that, you feel like, okay, I need to take a break. I'm gonna have a mental breakdown. But yeah, it's just that film brings out a lot. Like, it's so ordinary. It's fiction, but it's so ordinary that it
Yes.
connects to you.
Well, one thing I really want to say as well, like you say about work, and one thing that Arjun's character as well, he was working where, but it was just as a consumer. He earned money, but he wasn't truly alive. Everything was like, loads of spoilers are going to go go in now as we dissect this film.
I
So
think everyone has seen this, except I don't know, but like, yeah.
pause it, take 2.5 hours of life, do yourself a favor, go and watch it if you haven't. But yeah, for me it was like he had got all of the trappings of success, but he truly wasn't happy. He was very unfulfilled, and when he breaks down in tears after scuba diving, actually
Yeah.
really getting in touch of who he should be. But absolutely, I like, first of all, I was drawn to him because obviously he's a beautiful man with beautiful eyes. I'm like, right, he's a very striking
He's
dude. But then,
beautiful, man.
my God, like that. But then is like, oh, like when he comes out of the ocean and starts crying and stuff, and all in that one
You can,
take, I'm like, whoa, this guy can go. He's an amazing actor as well.
yeah, he's just a beautiful man, but damn, he's actually very beautiful.
But no, I mean, as soon as he popped up on the screen, I was like, oh, okay. But it just like, but then just seeing how they incorporate the other two characters as well, and like him being separated. There's a lot of masculine points being like dealt with there. Being the man and earning money, but really having no love, or not being able to love someone else,
Yeah,
just being completely focused on themselves. The guy who got sort of engaged by mistake but is doing his duty, and then the other
yeah,
guy wanting to meet his father, but sort of, that crushed me, by the way,
yeah,
wanting to meet his father but then being scared to do it as well, fulfilling
yeah.
his destiny in that
His
way.
biological dad basically was like, just got revealed that he has a, like, his dad that he lived with throughout his life isn't
Wasn't.
actually his dad. And like, when you actually get to know that, you're like, wait, what the what?
Yeah.
You just go like blank. Like, I don't know how many times I've seen that film, but it's a beautiful, like, very, very beautifully made film. Absolutely love it.
So
So
what spoke to you about that then? I mean, obviously it's an incredible. I know it's like this sort of like historical piece of Bollywood cinema that is absolutely amazing. But and it's very hard to say because I can see in a way what inspired you, because it's a bloody amazing film. But was it like the way they used poetry in it, or was it just the feeling, the inspiration of going, living your dreams, being the true to yourself? What made you like? What inspires you so much about that film? It's a tough question to
as you
answer.
as you said, poetry, it has always spoke to me because I have been writing since I was in fifth grade. My mom is a writer. She's an author. She writes poetry in Urdu and Hindi, and like, poetry and art has been like a big part of my household.
Mm,
I've been writing poems in Hindi, English, for a long time, and it really affects me. I always like to go back to reading poetry. Like,
mm,
there's something in poetry that is not gonna English poetry is very good.
mm.
It is nice, but there are certain words in Hindi and Urdu, when they're just spoken, there's so much depth to them. Like, if
Yes.
you read Arabic poetry, there's so much depth to them. You just cannot comprehend the levels of, like, deep they can go, and the way the love is expressed in them, the way human emotions are expressed in the dialogues of that film. It's just so beautifully crafted. It they
Yes.
hit they hit the right points. Like, for me, writing characters and their development was very much like, I love how these are such ordinary people. They have they have ordinary issues that I know people out there have. I know friends who
Mm,
have these issues, but it's like bringing them on screen and just feels like, wow.
Yeah.
Just the character development that goes on throughout the film, it's such a ladder. It's like step by step by step. It's
Yes.
not an instant, it's not fast paced, but the film feels fast paced, but it's so in pace. It's like it's hard to explain it, but it's again, it's like every film is like a puzzle. There are things
Yes.
that just fit in together, and you're like, wow, damn.
Do you think that as well? Like the is that what you seek as a director, just that authenticity? Because that's the thing I really got.
Yeah,
Nobody in either of those films behave. I mean, obviously in the first film, it's a lot more heightened because it's more of an epic. But the
yeah, like,
second film, they never, like when certain characters have doubts, like for the guy wanting to see his dad, or the other one about getting married, or even Arjun wanting to give up his life and just become a creative or whatever. Those doubts will resonate no matter where you are in your life, and that's what I really took from it as well, thinking, is this the right step for me to take? Is that something for you as well? Is that the sort of tales you want to tell about having that
yeah,
authenticity, making those choices?
yeah. It's like in that film, you just feel so human. You can just relate up there, and it doesn't feel like they're faking it. I think even
No.
like by an acting point of view, it just they're so it's so well portrayed. The shots, like a shot that shot was needed here to
Yeah.
show like those close-ups. Like I'm a big fan of close-ups. If you see watch my films, they are entirely made up of close-ups. I absolutely love them. I will use a wide where it's needed to show the blocking or show the space. That's it. Close-ups, they're absolutely my favorite. You can see emotions of people so nicely in that. It's the eyes. The eyes. When you see the eyes of the person, you know what's going with them. And close-ups, the way they have been used in that film, just instantly clicked with me.
With the diving scene as well, in close-ups, for me, from an audience perspective or an actor perspective, there's no lying, and it goes back to authenticity again. In a mid shot or a wide shot, you can be doing all this and stuff, but as soon as it goes to a close-up, everything has to be very focused, and like you say, it all comes out through the eyes. That's what I love about film so
Yeah,
much, that you have. I mean, this is something I want to ask you as well. With a live performance, or you can look anywhere, you can move about if you're watching something on stage, but as a director, you're picking those points, you get to direct their eye, and to pick close-ups is very interesting, because normally in personal space you don't get that close to someone to be
mm,
able to look at them that close and really look what's going on. That's why I really find in the intimacy of films, is that why you like close-ups, that you
yeah,
get to direct
yeah.
the eye that much?
I like digging in through the like people and like breaking out their character, breaking out what actually going through that space. Like there's something in those close-up that makes you forget everything that is around and just
Yes.
focus on that one person what is going with them. Because everything else right now doesn't matter. What he is thinking, what his eyes are feeling, what his face might be scrunching, everything that is what matters. And just the vulnerability that you can show through that, so good.
Sorry, was it? Okay, I'm going to mispronounce his name now, but Ahir, the guy who's dad, when his dad tells him he's never really looked for him, he's just not interested,
Oh,
and the
Farhan.
way that's it. Sorry,
Yeah,
yeah, and the
yeah,
way he portrays, just it was. He never wanted to meet him because I think he was expecting it, and it was the worst possible outcome.
yeah,
And the way it happens to all three of them have a point in the film where they don't say a word, but you see everything portrayed in their face. Like, okay, this is, like the revelation of getting back on the boat and then crying, or realizing that his dad didn't really want to meet him, and he was right about that, or having that scared that, "Oh, I
yeah,
don't really want to get married. I'm not sure if I really want to get married or not." And just
yeah.
in those emotional moments, absolutely phenomenal.
It is just so well done. It's like everything from inch to inch is covered perfectly. Like I know, like filmmakers can point out their mistakes, what they might have done. As an audience, you can't because I know when you watch a film throughout the edit, you start off over analyzing it. Do you need it here? Do you not?
Mm.
Da, 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 da. I don't know how those filmmakers find mistakes in these kind of masterpieces, but absolutely, absolutely amazing. I cannot find any mistake.
The funny thing is, well, I think because when you create it, you've seen all the back end of it. You've seen where
Yeah,
all the wires are and stuff like that. So you're aware of something may not be perfect. But I think as an audience, you tend to just give yourself up to it. So it's not looking at the technical details so much. I mean, if you're really involved in it, sometimes you can be like, oh, that looked a bit weird or that looked a bit off.
yeah,
But for the most part, if it's a good film or if it's a good story, if it's emotionally
yeah,
investing in you, then you're going to be like, you cease to see the strings. You're in the story. You're with them, and
yeah.
that's the most important thing. That's incredible direction, as far as I'm
Yeah,
concerned.
absolutely. It's just both of those films, the way they are crafted, just makes you go like, this just feels right. This is how it should be. No other way. You cannot imagine it any other way. Like it's like your mind has been just put on screen, how you must have thought about it. And that is what really like inspires me or like just gets to me about filmmaking. It's getting those stories out of your brain and on the screen. It's
Exactly.
absolutely amazing. I don't know how it can be done any other way, but
And one other thing I really noticed as well in both films, strong female characters. Maybe not so much in Western cinema. Sometimes you'll get the love interest, but like the mother character will get two lines in a film and
yeah,
that's it. If that, but in both these films, the mothers are featured heavily. The idea of family and responsibility, but also as well, like there's no token love interest in either film. There's no just rough sketching of the character. These are full complete humans with their own needs and desires and wants in life, and that really
yeah,
spoke to me as well because it's like everyone's getting equal billing. Everyone's getting you care so much because you can like you say everyone has a backstory. You can
yeah.
see the reasons and the motivations for all of them
I
as
think that
well.
is the reason why these films are so long because all the characters are in focus. I feel like when the duration is shortened, you don't really get the time to invest into each character's life.
Mm,
And when you have that time, it's like why do we need to give films a certain duration? A story will be told in its own time. Like we all live our lives. It's not like we're all given 50 years to live and we have to do our everything. We work on our own timeline and films should be like that. Like they should not be fast paced. You should not be like, okay, I have to finish this in 5 minutes, so I'm gonna cut. That just makes a film fast paced, and it's gonna ruin the sense of it. Sense of the story is just gonna go away. So giving a person time and space to develop, because imagine if like what are stories? They are real lives that you created in your head, in your story
mm.
world. And if they were actually real, imagine all of that happening in 1 hour. You would completely lose entire meaning of it. You wouldn't be able to get through it. And it's just like you need that time period to develop the character to get through it. It's
Spoken
just
like a true artist as well. It takes as long as it takes. You know
yeah,
what I
it's
mean?
gonna
That's
take
just
as
something.
long as it's gonna take. I made an 8 minute film. It took me 9 months. It's
Mm.
gonna take as long as it's gonna take. There's no way you can rush. Like everything is meant to be. Like it will get done on its own pace. You cannot rush anything up. It's all written. Like in the film when they say it's all written.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that I got as well from both of these directors, like I say, a lot of the time when I see a long running time, I'm very worried from films I've watched before. They've become unfocused. They don't know where to edit, or they don't know where to bring an ending to a proceedings, or that there's backstory that isn't really needed. But in
Yeah,
both of these films, they they're like watches. They're so precise. Everything has a point. Everything gives meaning. So by the time it comes to the end of the films, you're like, actually, that was perfect. If anything, I would say in the second film, I actually I wouldn't have minded it going longer because it sort of cuts to the dance scene where Arjun's getting married, which surprised me, and I was like, oh, but there was a big old gap there. How did they? I have to ask you this: what do you think happened with
I
the couple that
yeah.
almost got broke up and then they ended up being together? I was like, what happened there?
No, no. So basically, it's like in the end, they show the wedding sequence of
Mm,
Arjun and Leela, and
yeah,
Arjun and Leela get married because in the bull running scene, he's like, "I'm gonna
I
leave
will.
my job and I'm gonna Morocco and I'm gonna be with Leela." And I think they get married, but Natasha and Kabir they break up, but they're
Ah,
still friends. they're still together and they're having like they're still friends. They're not together. Natasha is with some other guy, which you notice if you like intricate like nitpick the
I need
details
to
of the
look. I
scene.
need to look again.
Yeah, if you nitpick, she's with some other guy, and
Ah,
Kabir, because it's his best friend's wedding, he's just there. He's taking photographs because he's fond of photography,
yeah,
and Farah is just he's the flirt. He's
yeah.
with Laila's old friend, and he's just there having fun, and it's all nice. Like it just shows Bollywood films have a like thing about happy endings.
Yeah,
So it's like that is the happy ending. They got married. So you don't have to think about oh what happened after the bull race. So that's kind of like a Marvel post credit
yeah,
scene.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, but just like in contrast to that, if you see Sanjay Leela Bhansali films, they never have a happy ending. It's always something tragic that will
Death.
happen and absolutely ruin your mood and be like, oh my God, why did I watch this? I am in a trauma now. I'm traumatized for life because it's never in a happy ending and like it's just people dying and dying and dying and dying. But it's
I
just so well
no,
made.
I had a habit. I had a habit of for quite a long while watching films that always were depressing or very nihilistic because I thought it made them more meaningful. Oh, it's all black. It all ends in terror and destruction. And after I'm like, well, I'm getting really depressed. Hence me really getting into romantic comedies because why can't you be
So
happy sometimes? Why can't things be good?
Christmas films. Watch Christmas films. They're very nice. I've been watching one every day. Hey, we're nearing Christmas. But
So,
no, like there should be a balance because life is just
mm,
not black and white. There's a lot
ex-
of gray parts and there are a lot of more colors to explore. You cannot just be okay, maybe this happened. Maybe there's a film where something happy and it had like happened, but there's also something bad that really happened. And there's a mixture of that sad and happy, and that's what life is. It's up and down, up and down.
yes.
Because once it goes flat line, that means you're dead. So fair
And,
enough.
and and the thing is, and I completely agree as well. And the thing is as well, with all film, a lot of the time, unless it ends in like a death, you can't follow a character for the whole of their life. So I feel that you're going to enter in at an important event. So you have to understand where they've come, and then you have to understand at some moment they're going to
Yeah,
say goodbye, but their life is going on. And for me, as an actor, and also do you believe this is a director that again, we were going back to it again. This is what I like, the authenticity of like, okay, you're seeing this little period in their life, but you believe that they've come from somewhere and
yeah.
they're going on to somewhere. We're just not going to see it.
Yeah, it's like that's what the actor and the director have to work together on in for the actor to show that they come from somewhere.
Mm,
Something has happened in their life. They are real. They're very real and they're very out there. They have not just lived in that timeline. They have lived
mm,
before and they have lived afterwards. Their life doesn't end there. It's just a part of their story that they willingly shared with everyone else. So all these characters, they're as real as you mean. They're in my head, all the characters that were developed, they're still living and they have some other trauma happening in their life. And I maybe will make a sequel about their life because they have more traumas. They're still living. So it never ends. But yeah, so they're as real as us. And there has to be that authenticity in ththose characters for
and
people to relate to them, people to get emotionally destroyed by them.
exactly.
They need to be.
But do you have a favorite bit of the creation process? Is it because you say you love to write? Is it bringing something from your mind onto the page, or is it like Is it during the moment where you're finding problems and then sort of like I say, problem solving and getting the shot, or is it in the edit, or is it all of these things? Is there like no pick a favorite? Do you find joy in each bit?
I absolutely love character designing. I think I went to I can show you when I've made
Um,
my first film, I made these character designs and
wow,
they're like little sketches of how it should be, how they should look. And I was doing all of this. So basically we also make storyboards so this is like
oh
uh,
wow,
that's what I made. That's the like their relationship together. It's like the
amazing.
film Puran Darwaze. It's in festivals now. And that was both of them together. But then I made separate sketches of how I want the characters to be. What are
Oh,
their
wow.
hobbies? I wrote a whole background of how they would be. So it just feels like the character development and like just making them have a life, just
Yes.
putting them down. It always like I always love it. It always feels absolutely amazing because I love to write. I love developing characters. Like I'm always in my own dreamland. I There's something going in my brain. Even as a kid, I've always been like that. I make stories. I daydream a lot. Like there's so much maladaptive dreaming going on in my life that it's hard to put it on one paper. But when I write films, it's just like I love this process of them getting their own life, of them just coming out of my brain. I'm like, okay, some empty shelves. I need more space. Come on. Much. Yeah, it's just very nice. It's nice to do that part and storyboarding. It's very fun as well. Making little sketches of the frame. I love that drawing part. It's very
Yes.
fun, very creative, but you still have to think of practical aspects. It feels very nice.
I just love the fact that you're thinking in pictures and stuff as well. There's something so directorial in that. Like, okay, so it's gonna be like this. Like you're it, for me, it's I always liken it to when someone like does clay sculpting or so, and they see the thing inside it already, and you're seeing this blank space, and then you. But this has to exist, and
Yeah,
and it's almost. Do you find this that it's almost like the more you think about it, the more characters are introducing themselves to you. So
yeah.
you're like, oh, you do this and this and this, and yeah, yeah,
It's like the more like features and elements you add to them, the more you yourself as the person who has already created those characters, it's like the characters are telling their story. You are not telling their story. They choose. It's just something from intuitiveness that just comes like they must have lived through this for them to go and have this happen to them. Absolutely amazing. I love that part where it's not like you are making those stories. It's like the story is getting fed to you. It's like something speaking to you the entire
yes,
time. And these are all these voices. I sound very schizophrenic, but I'm
no.
not. But there are a lot of voices speaking to you, like, I've done this, I've done this. It's absolutely amazing to put it all down on paper and you see a whole life that you have just created. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful to tell those stories out.
They are, I would say as well, what it is for me is an attention to detail. And coming from my perspective, when we had those conversations, that you'd done enough backstory that it just made my
Yeah.
sort of work even better. Like everything felt like a level up. And I think the way that you're so in tune with your creative process that you get these details down. Again, it goes back to what you're saying about with the first film, Bajiro, having the attention to detail, putting the puzzle together. But I always say in art, you should never settle for that'll do. Like, oh, that's yeah, that'll be fine. Yeah, we'll leave
No,
that.
no,
You're
you
putting it
have to plan.
together.
It's not even planning. I work more spontaneously, but for a character, like I keep on going back to very like psychologically and philosophically,
Mm.
things happen in life very spontaneously. It's very uncertain. Life is very uncertain. So no matter how much you plan, things are never gonna go the way they're supposed to because there were so many things on our set that didn't go as they were planned. God knows how many problems we dealt with, but it's just you have to be creative on spot. I made up details about the character on spot while talking to you. There's like a tab open in my brain that is writing something down and I'm just spilling it. It's just going on and on process. Like you need to plan things, but you also need to understand it might not go as it's planned. You can't even keep you can keep as many backup plans as you want. They all can fail. There's nothing that can actually like even stop. You can have all the safety measures, but if it's meant to happen, it will happen. So just be ready to like go through it. And I think like when you just know, like it's again the voices that speak in your brain. It's like you know the character. If you know the character well enough, I don't think there's any problem in your story that you cannot overcome because your character is a human. He will get through it. He's not just going to commit suicide or something like that. It's I mean even that can go into good content that became dark very quickly, but
No, I get what you mean.
But
So
even that would be a good film. But
everything is a choice at the end of the day. You
yeah,
can't control what's going to happen to you, but you can always control how you react to it, and
yeah,
that becomes a story.
yeah, everything is a story. What we are living right now is a story. I can just come up with what happened today in my day, turn it into film, and there you go. It's there, out there, and it's a story because stories are human experiences. No stories, like even fantasy films, I would say, like, they're not, they're just worlds that are different, but their experiences are so human. Like, I'm a big fan of Harry Potter, but if you notice it, it's just a world that is so different. Except that their problems are very human. They're just dealing with things on with magic. There's just
Exactly.
some magic with them, and they're dealing it with just how we would work with machines. So you give a gun in my hand, it will act as good as a wand. Nothing's gonna happen. But it's just everything is very human. Everything is just life, and it's people's experiences that people put into fiction and non-fiction, and you get stories. And I think that is why everyone loves art and cinema, because it's like a part of you that you never told anyone, but somebody lived the same thing as that and got it in front of you. And when you read it, you feel a sense of comfort that it's, I'm not alone in this. It's a very comforting, safe space in art and in cinema, in any form of art. You're just like very there. Someone is there for you.
That. That's absolutely wonderful. I cannot add anything to that. That is just such a beautiful.
Yeah,
It's wonderful.
I grew up in a writer's household.
You've just dropped poetry on me now. That was absolutely incredible.
No.
So listen, I can't believe I knew it was going to fly along, but that's the hour, believe it or not, pretty much. So I was just going to say, what's coming up next? What poetry can we hear next after that? What films are coming up next, and where can people follow you if you want them to?
I have an Instagram. It's called Divyanshi Menaria Films, and I have a LinkedIn. I have a portfolio, but majorly on my Instagram. That is Divyanshi Menaria Films. You can just follow me there, and more films. Like, I have some more projects that are coming up. Our latest film that Philip was the star lead of.
Yeah.
Is it? His name is Connor. He's a boxer. And it's wonderful, and that's coming up next. And then I have a few more projects, and then I'm thinking of starting a new script by my own self as well.
Oh
So let's
wow!
see where that goes. Takes a long process, but we'll
I,
get there.
I
There's a
can't
long line left.
I can't wait to see what puzzle you put together next, because it was an absolute pleasure to work for you, and it's been lovely to speak to you today. Thank you so much for the
It was
time.
great speaking with you again as well. Well, I'll see you. Bye-bye.
Take care, dear. Bye now.
Bye.